Hey everyone, I want to first thank you for joining me on this presentation. This presentation is going to teach you how to make multiple offers on every deal. And when you know how to create multiple offers, you're going to not only give the seller more options, but you're going to increase your acceptance ratio of yeses and close more deals. And I can tell you, after years of being in the business, this is one of the reasons I've closed a lot of deals and I've made a lot of money. And most importantly, I'm still doing it. So what I want to do is just get right into it. We have a lot to cover in this presentation. It's been crazy busy. We've had a lot of people register for this, and I know it's going to really kind of, I would say, clear some of the confusion you may have. But keep in mind, you do have to understand the multiple real estate strategies in order to make multiple offers. But we'll talk about that as we go through the presentation. My name is Chris Goff, and I am the founder of REI and Me, also the co-founder of REI Pro Investor Software, and as well as the co-founder of our local real estate investment group, Group 360. Live in Peachtree City, Georgia. I'm a husband, father of three. Actually grew up in Northern Virginia, and that's where I started my real estate investing career. And I was an airline mechanic. It was one of my dream jobs as a kid, was to work on airplanes. And when I finally landed that dream job, I realized, although that was my dream job as a kid, that was not my dream salary as an adult. So I started looking into this whole real estate investing thing and bought a couple of home study courses, got started, had no idea what I was doing. Didn't know what I was saying to people, didn't know how to evaluate properties. I didn't know how to fill out a contract. But I kept plugging away. And it was one of those things that I believed in. It was something in my heart that I knew that I wanted to do, and I wasn't going to fail at it. And I continued that process, and now I've been doing it since 1999. I've closed over 500 deals, and a lot of these deals are very creative deals, from a lease option to a seller finance to working with people in pre-foreclosure to wholesaling and retailing, all across the board from residential to commercial. So a little mix of everything, very diverse in the business. I know there's not that many investors out there that are diverse. They kind of stick with one way. They go with that. And I guess that's how they're trained. In the process, become a two-time best-selling author. I'm a coach, mentor, and I've been featured on the Brian Tracy TV show as a guest expert. So I've been able to do a lot of things. Never thought I would do any of these things. I just wanted to go flip a house and make more money. And next thing you know, we really turned it into a big business where we've had multiple offices, multiple people, and now moving into the software side, which is really going to be my big baby. If you haven't downloaded it already, here's a book that I wrote with Brian Tracy. For those that know, Brian Tracy's been around for a long time. He was actually one of the second books that I bought, because I realized, although you have to learn real estate, if you don't change the way you think about things, then you're probably not going to do well. So I went ahead and started to read up on the motivation and what it takes to really succeed in any business, not just real estate, but any business. You can download a digital version on my website at reiandme.com, where you can also purchase the hard copy there at Amazon. We do donate all proceeds to a children's charity, so it's pretty awesome if you do want to get the hardback. Most of you are already on the REI Pro software, which is awesome, but I know we have a lot of new people in attendance. This is really the bread and butter. We've got a lot of awesome things coming out in our 2017 version with the new color scheme. We've simplified some things. We're also adding a ton of new features, including a deal analyzer, which is going to be phenomenal. It's something we've been taking our time with and wanted to make sure that we can provide these multiple strategies and multiple solutions, and a deal analyzer that I've never seen before. It's just something we've always handwritten on paper. And it's really exciting to really put the final touches on that. That's going to be released here very soon, as well as a lot of new features. So if you're not on board with REI Pro, go ahead and get your free trial, test it out. I can tell you it's going to be your new MVP employee. It's pretty awesome. It has the complete system of anything out there. All right, the first thing that I want to teach you, and to me, this is the most important part, and I never seen anybody really teach this, but to me, this is how I got started. And this, to me, really simplified and broke down how we do real estate and what strategies should we use. And, I know a lot of people that get started with one strategy, but how do you know if I'm passing up deals because I don't know another strategy and so forth. And I think if you get this one part, this is what I call the 3 financing techniques. And the 3 financing techniques are nothing more of how we can purchase a property. The very first way is what I call all cash. Now, what I mean by all cash is we're going to pay the seller in one lump sum. I don't care if it's dollar bills out of your pocket. I don't care if it's a bank loan. All I'm saying is that we're going to pay the seller in one lump sum. Now, if we do that, of course, we have to get a discount, and a discount is enough there to make a profit. Otherwise, you'd pay full price and have to hold on to it for numerous years to even realize any kind of profits. The second way that we can buy properties is what we call terms. Most of you are already familiar with this because most of you already do this. This is how much down, how much a month, and how long can I pay you? If anyone has ever bought a house and got financing, that's pretty much terms. If anyone's bought a car that's got financing, it's pretty much terms. So a lot of things that we do already in life, and heck, we're in America. This is kind of what America is born on is credit and terms. Then you're probably going to be very familiar with this. Now, the ideal way to buy a property is not only to buy it on terms, but to get the price down. And that ultimately is going to be what we call the home run deal. And we're going to talk about a little bit of how this really works. I don't want you to think about strategy at this point because strategy just confuses people. All I want you to think about is I can either buy the house at a cash discount or I can buy it on terms. If they're not motivated on that, guess what? Move on to the next deal. We always said if the seller picks the sales price, you pick the terms. If the seller picks the terms, you pick the sales price. If the seller picks the terms and the sales price, move on to the next one. So when you understand this way of buying property, and it's really going to help you with the motivation. I know that if I communicate with a seller and they say, hey, Chris, I've got a job transfer, I need to move in 2 weeks. Well, it's less likely that that house is going to sell that quickly. Maybe terms would be a better solution. So, hey, would you be interested or would you be open to a lease option or a seller finance where I can make short-term monthly payments and cash you out down the road? So that's where we may lead into terms versus somebody that is in a desperate situation where they just need the cash, they need to move on, they don't need the burden. That's where we would come in with a I don't want to say lowball offer. I hate to use that term because I just look at here's what it's worth, here's my expenses, here's my potential profits, that's the price. If you want to call that a lowball, I guess call it a lowball, but I call it just an intelligent offer. So what I did here, and this is something we have in our Blueprint Home Study course, is this chart. Because once you understand if I can buy the house at cash discount or I buy it on terms, that's really going to identify what strategy it is. So if you look at the very bottom, you can see real estate financing technique there. So wholesaling is always going to be at a cash discount. So we're going to put the house under contract at a cash discount and then sell it just for a little bit more to a retailer, where a retailer is still purchasing the property at a cash discount. Where lease options, seller financing is going to be more terms. And how much down, how much a month, how long can I do it for? So I know if the seller is open to a cash discount, I already know it's either wholesaling or retailing. I know that if they're open to terms, it's either lease option or owner finance. And what this does is really simplifies this whole business. I think people they overanalyze, it gets too complicated because the more you learn, the more you realize how big it is. And how big this business is pretty amazing. But I think when you teach it, you have to really break this down into levels, because I really wish somebody taught me this when I got started. This is just years of mistakes because it took years just to even figure out how to do a lease option. So you really have to break this down into simple terms, and it's either cash discount or terms. That ultimately identifies what strategy we're going to use. Now, understanding those strategies is what's going to help you make multiple offers. So just a quick test for you guys. I like to do this at my training live workshops. I think it really kind of relates because I want you to start visualizing what this looks like. So I'm going to share with you a few pictures, and I want you to just think immediately, what's your first thought? Hey, could buy that at a cash discount. I could buy that on terms, or I could buy that both ways. Okay, so the first property very distressed, looks like it needs to be torn down. Again, we don't know what the land value is, but just immediate, there needs to be a red flag that goes off to say, hey, this is more of a cash discount, or hey, this is more terms, or hey, this is both. And I know probably about 80% of the people that raise their hands say, hey, cash discount. Actually, what I want you to think of is, what about both? This property is distressed. It's been sitting around for quite some time. And why wouldn't they just take payments on it? It's not like it's probably going anywhere. And looks like it's been that way for quite some time. Why not just negotiate a deal, make payments on it, rehab the property, and then turn around and sell it? So not only are you getting the terms part of it, buying you enough time to rehab it, and then you turn around and sell it maybe in 6 months, whatever the time frame is to get this property rehabbed, or maybe you tear it down and build a new construction on it. So think of, ideally you got to get a cash discount, but why not do both? And not only is that going to save you a ton of money, because if you did buy this house, generally most people go to a bank, you have to put 20% down, then you need the cost of repairs and so forth. So if I can buy this on terms where I can start making small monthly payments without putting a down payment, because obviously the house needs a lot of repairs, I don't want to give the seller money down, and as well as putting a ton of money into it. Sellers are very open to that. And it only makes sense. Hey, they're just happy someone's interested in it. They're happy that this property is just, they're not thinking about, they're not paying taxes on it anymore. They're not paying insurance and so forth. But what about this property? So here it's boarded up, you drive by and it looks distressed. Doesn't mean it is distressed. The inside could be gorgeous. We don't know, but most likely it's probably not. You would, again, I think cash discount, but could you also think terms? So again, this may fall into both. Then you have a house that's bank owned or in foreclosure. Generally speaking, the bank is going to want to be cashed out. So this would be a cash discount. Most banks aren't going to take a term, although it has happened to me. We ran into millions of dollars worth of real estate just by asking if they would lease option. But that generally doesn't work with big banks. That's going to be more of your small local banks. But I can't necessarily call Bank of America up and say, hey, would you do a lease option on a foreclosure? So generally speaking, I want you to think of cash discount in this case. But then we have a house that's for rent. What I love about a house for rent, number one, most people don't call on a house for rent to invest in. But the owner is already willing to accept monthly payments. And if they're willing to accept monthly payments, now the question is, do they want to sell down the road? This could set up perfect for a lease option or seller finance. And then you have this nice, beautiful house, manicured, perfect condition. Generally speaking, I would approach this with terms. And the reason is most likely the seller's not going to take a cash discount on this very nice house. And if you give them a cash discount, guess what? They're probably going to say no, and then they're not going to listen to any other offer that you want to give them. I have actually been to sellers where I'm like, I'm not even going to make a cash offer on this because it's going to be too low than what you're asking. What I think the smartest way to purchase this property would be a lease option or even a potential seller finance. Is that something you'd be open to? So generally in this case, you want to look at terms, which is then going to move into those other two strategies. Okay. What I want to do is actually walk through a case study. This is actually a property that we have. You can see in the bottom right-hand corner, that's me with a hat on, talking with the owner there. And this property was in distress. We were actually remodeling the house across the street, and we ended up selling the house across the street. We had the sign in the front yard. They gave us a call. We communicated, and we've got some information on it. Let me just share some of the basic information on this property. It's a 4-bedroom, 2-bath. The ARV is 244. The owner's situation is they want to go through a divorce. And so here I walk over to the property. I'm talking to both the husband and wife, and you can see the separation already. And it's not always a comfortable position to be in, but at the end of the day, they wanted to sell this property before they actually filed for divorce, which is even better for us because then we don't want to have the court ordered to sell it. They probably would have hired a realtor and so forth. We want to make sure that we're going to get a good deal. Property situation needs repairs, but it was livable, and they were living in the property at the time. Now, every time I go to a property, I always picture, I'm going to put this in tip-top shape. What would it cost me if I were to retail this? Could I wholesale this? Could I put it under contract really cheap and sell it cheap? Could I potentially lease option it? I'm always thinking these questions to myself, and I advise you guys to do the exact same thing. Now, here they were asking $120. Now, keep in mind the ARV on this was 244. Why would they be asking 120? Well, number one, they're motivated. They're in a divorce. They want to be cashed out. They want to take the money. They want to move on. They don't want to see each other. And they understood that. That's kind of the setup, basic setup of the property. And what I want to do is actually work with you on structuring these offers. Not only am I going to do it on paper here in this presentation, I'm also going to go into REI Pro and show you how to put this in step 4 and then how we actually present these offers to the owner. And then I'm going to tell you what the outcome was on this particular property. So our first cash offer, well, I'm going to share with you how to calculate all this in step 4. It's very simple to do. Was $94,000. This was basically our starting point. There was a maximum cash offer. We obviously want to start less than that to leave some room for negotiation. But due to the amount of repairs, if I'm going to pay cash for this and I'm going to retail it, like I said before, I want to picture this in tip-top shape. I need to update the property. I need to fix things. There's a lot of moving parts with this. And in our estimation, it came out to about $70,000 to rehab this particular property. I don't really do too much wholesaling unless it's just something we don't want to do. So from my point of view, I was going into the deal. If we're going to pay cash for the house, I'm going to retail it. So I want to think of my exit strategies as we do this, because even when we make the offer, I already know what we're going to do with it. I also know if that doesn't work, I already know what plan B and C is going to be too. So yes, you do need to understand what your exit strategies are going to be if they accepted one of these offers. The offer number 2 would be seller financing. Now, we could go up on price on this to 110. I know in the long haul, they're going to be making interest. We're going to be taking care of the maintenance cost and repairs. Ultimately, they would make more money, but they're not going to get it today. Now, I know they're going through a divorce. They want to cash out, be done, take the money, and run. It doesn't mean that they won't take the offer. I couldn't tell you how many times a seller says to me, I'm not interested in a lease option. And then when I make the offer as well as other offers, man, that lease option looks so much better on paper than some of these other offers, and they end up taking that. So you never know what they're going to take. I think your job is to qualify the situation, understand the condition, run the numbers, present the offers. Okay. So 2,500 down. Now, typically when we do a seller finance, especially if they're going to deed over the house, which I prefer, we need to give some money down on this to have some invested interest. Plus, they could use that 2,500 that could be used to go anywhere. Interest rate at 5%, total PI payment right around 577. I am, these numbers are not to the penny here, just to make that clear. Taxes and insurance would be paid by the buyer, which would be me because I do have the deed. We're going to do a term of what we call 5 years. So we're going to amortize this loan over 30 years to give the payment down. But in 5 years is what we call balloon payment. And a balloon payment is nothing more than I'm going to make monthly payments to you for up to 5 years. At the end of 5 years, I'm going to find out what the balance is owed, and then I'm going to cash you out either by my own cash or I'm going to get the property refinanced because at this point I own the property. Total payment over 5 years would be 153. So they're not really getting 110. If you look at it over the course of 5 years, they're actually going to be getting 153. Now, doesn't mean I have to wait till 5 years. I could fix this property up in 6 months and cash them out. So there's no prepayment penalty or anything crazy like that. So the payments, and this is going to vary between situation. You're just going to have to kind of feel this out with the owners. Either could be made to the owner, and then if there's a mortgage on it, they'd pay their mortgage, or this could be set up through like an escrow account where they actually make all the payments. So the seller's going to continue to make payments to their bank. All in just FYI, all the seller financing transactions need to be handled by an attorney to drop the paperwork. Could go through a title company as well, depending on where you're at, what state. And this would be considered a wraparound mortgage because there would be an existing mortgage on there. And if that's the case, that's where you would add the subject to existing financing clause. A lot of people call it sub 2s. It's not really a strategy. It's actually a clause you put in a wraparound agreement for seller financing. Not to confuse anyone, but I know a lot of people out there say, hey, there's a new strategy called sub 2. Well, it's not a strategy. It's called seller financing. Now, of course, if they didn't have a mortgage, it wouldn't be a wraparound contract. It'd just be a normal standard purchase and sale agreement, and then specifying the seller financing terms to it, which would be even easier. Offer number three is going to be a lease option. This is one of my favorite strategies. We're going to move that sales price up a little bit. So as you know, and when we present these multiple offers, they're going to get more over here, but less here, more there, less here. And every offer is going to look a little bit different. I always try to find what their pet peeve is. Is it the sales price? Is it the down payment, the monthly, how long we're going to do it? I like to figure that out, sense that, and really cater to that. With lease options, we can pay full price. Seller financing, I like to keep it a little bit below, and then cash offer would be our lowest price if I had to look at all three. I don't want to put a down payment. Again, this would be negotiable, but I'd prefer not to, just a simple fact of the amount of work that's going to be done in the property. I'm not going to personally do the work because I wouldn't own the property in a lease option, but that's how I would approach it to the seller. Hey, I don't want to pay you money and then put money into the house. To me, that's called a double down payment. Okay. Then the monthly payment, what we do is we check the rent value. Of course, we would want to come less than that. This particular rent value is right around $1,900. But keep in mind, this house isn't in a condition to rent it at $1,900. So I offered $1,200. I want to go to a term of 3 years. Now, it gives us the writer option to purchase this property on or before the end of that agreement. So we're going to make payments for 3 years, cash the seller out. And I always tell the seller, our goal is always to cash you out as quickly as possible. We just like to have up to 3 years. Again, no prepayment penalty or anything like that. Maintenance costs and repairs would be paid by the buyer up to $500 per occurrence. Anything after that would be paid by the seller. Again, the seller does own the house in a lease option, but we do want to give some responsibility to the buyer because at the end of the day, in their mind, they're going to be buying the property. So here we have our multiple offers. So cash offer, seller finance, a lease option. We do have a fourth offer I'm really not going to get into in this particular presentation, which I call it the last resort offer, and that's where we would just help them sell the house. And that's simply like a wholesaling deal. If we in straight options are typically done in nice neighborhoods, nice houses that don't need repairs, but it operates very, very similar to what you would say wholesaling is with distressed properties. So I really just want to cover these three, and let's move on. All right, so exit strategy number one, let me kind of tell you how the end result would be. So if we're analyzing this particular deal, what would make sense? What would our profits be, and so forth? Purchase price, we actually ended up doing a cash offer. That's what they accepted. We negotiated from $94,000 to $96,000. So this is actually a real deal that we do have currently. Expenses on this was $93,000. That's going to include repairs, closing, acquisition, selling cost, and I'm going to show you how to do that in step 4. Total debt on here $189,000. We just put this house under contract for $246,000. So we're going through the inspection process right now. So, but I do want to share with you if the seller did take the other offers, how would that actually look as well? Total profit on this is estimated at $57,000. Now, if they took your seller finance offer, what could we do with it? Again, you could play with these numbers a little bit. So we have the terms with the owner. So $110,000, $2,500 down, 5% interest, monthly payment. Again, that's PI, principal interest payment, because keep in mind the buyer's responsible for taxes and insurance would be separate. So whatever I'm paying the seller in taxes and insurance would just be carried over to the buyer, which they would be paying. So that would just be a wash. I want to go 5 years on here. Now with the new buyer, we're going to sell this property at $150,000. Now keep in mind, I know it's worth $244,000, but I also know that it does need work. It is livable, but it needs work, needs some updating. So this is a very good deal for a buyer that can't go to the bank today and get financing. Down payment would be $10,000. Again, you can move that around. You could start with 10, start with 12, take 10, ask for 10, take 8. That's totally negotiable and up to you. All I care about is that you at least make more than the $2,500 you have to pay the seller, okay? Interest rate we set at 6%. Monthly principal interest payment, as you can see, would be $840, which is higher than the $577 that we would need to pay the seller. Term of this would be 2 years. I generally don't like to go 1 year on a seller finance, just a simple fact that they're putting more money down. I like to give them a little bit more time, whereas a lease option is going to be a little bit different here. All right, so let's look at potential profit centers in this particular scenario, profit center number one is going to be the difference in down payment, which in this case, if we collected 10, paid the seller 2,500, you would make 7,500. Cash flow, which is the difference between monthly payments calculated over 24 months, would be another 6,300. Profit center number three, we would need to amortize this loan, which I did. We would owe the seller 104 after 2 years. The new buyer would owe me 136 after 2 years. Total sales price or profit on this would be 32 just on the sales price. So total profit on here would be 45,800. So as you can see, our profit's down, but how much money did it cost you? It really didn't cost you any money. And that's kind of the beauty of this strategy, is because when we get the down payment from the new buyer, we can then pay the seller. Now, that doesn't always happen. Now, I don't mind paying the seller $2,500 because I just bought a house. I don't know how many houses you could buy out there for $2,500, right? And then I'm going to get that recuperated from the new buyer. But keep in mind, whoever has the deed here would be responsible for all maintenance costs and repairs. So we don't have that additional expense. We don't need a management company to oversee this, because this is a good qualified particular, seller finance buyer that ultimately is going to cash us out within those 2 years. Now, worst case scenario, if they don't cash you out in 2 years, what can you do? Well, you have a lot of options, because you basically are going to take the property back. You could extend the agreement with the buyer. You have 3 more years to do something with it. You could put a for sale sign and sell it. You could rent it. You could sell or finance it back out, and you could do a lease option on. So you have a lot of options when you own the property. Okay. Our last strategy was the lease option, and purchase price was 120. So the down payment 0. Now, keep in mind, we're paying them exactly what they want. It's just going to be on terms. So if the seller's pet peeve is sales price, they may elect to go with this particular offer versus, hey, we just need to get cashed out. I'm tired of dealing with this house. They may go with our cash offer. But if they did take the lease option offer, again, $1,200 per month, and then we want to go as long as possible. I just usually go 3 years with the lease option, just general rule of thumb. But with the new buyer, we're going to put that purchase price higher, because still worth it. And we probably could even go higher than this, but I want to make it make sense. I think when you make these offers make sense, you're going to get a lot more deals done. I think people try to penny pinch. I think you go too low. And I've also seen the exact opposite, where you're paying too much. And then when you're paying too much, then you can't sell it, and you run into the exact same problem. So we really want to make these offers make sense. And again, I'm just using this particular property as an example. I know you probably can't find a $120,000 house in Los Angeles, California, or San Francisco, or New York City, or Boston. But this is just an example. Really, the great thing is, it doesn't matter on price. It all matters on how you work these numbers. That's it. And the more expensive these houses get, the more potential profits you're going to make. That's as simple as that. All right, so profit center number one is going to be the difference in down payment. It's going to be just like the seller finance. The difference in monthly payment in this case is $400 a month for 12 months, another $4,800. And then the difference in sales price. Again, I don't use monthly credits. I know a lot of people do, but I think you're going to get into trouble down the road. There's some new laws out there on this. I just say stay away from it. So we owe the seller the 120, which we still agreed. The buyer owes us 140 minus the 6,000 they put down, which would be 134. The difference between 120 and 134 would be our profit. So you add all that up, our profit in this particular case is 24,800. Now, keep in mind, this is over a period of a year. Now, the great thing is, one property doesn't make you rich, but just think if you only had 10 of these. And if you had 10 of these done in a year, now you're making more than most people in America. And that's the thing, your goal is to find sellers that can't sell and buyers that can't buy when you're dealing with creative financing. So let's get into REI Pro, because I really want to show you how we go through step 4 and how we actually calculate these offers, as well as how do we present these offers to the sellers. So let me jump over into REI Pro. I've already got the property pulled up. And so if you go into REI Pro, now keep in mind, guys, and I don't know if you were on the last presentation, we're going to be sending out a ton of reminders on this, but with our new version, that's going to be coming out very, very soon. I know I keep saying that, but we really want to perfect it before we give it to you. The foundation of the software is going to be the exact same. Some color schemes, we've actually simplified some things. All new training videos will be redone. So everything's going to blend right in together. So what you want to do for offers, go to step 4. And so if I just kind of recap, step 1, we found the property. We did some basic due diligence. We then contacted the owner. I visited the property during the inspection. I built a relationship, found out their situation in more depth. And then now step 4, we're going to calculate offers. So as I go to step 4 and the cash offer here, again, you want to go through the comparable sales. You want to make sure that you have the correct ARV when you do this, because everything's going to be dictated by this ARV. So make sure that you do find comparable properties that have sold, and you could use multiple sources. Obviously, we pull from the county, but some counties don't record some of the square footages, and that's where you're going to have to venture off into other areas. But make sure you do have a good, accurate ARV here. Estimated repairs is going to be $70,000. Acquisition cost, this is actually a little bit high for us here. But again, this is going to be low for other people in the country. You're going to just need to find out. And what acquisition cost is nothing more than closing costs when you buy. So you have title searches, you have attorney that's drawn up a deed. All of those closing costs, acquisition cost is going to be here. We usually base this off a percentage. I can tell you the national average is about 3%, 2.5% to 3%. But here in Georgia, it's very cheap to close on a property. But if you're in Texas, it's going to be more expensive and so forth. Holding cost, we generally use a percentage on here. Again, I know our holding cost is going to be a little bit less than what I would say would be the average. This is going to be your electric, gas, water, all the things that you're going to have expenses on while you're rehabbing this property. And then closing costs is when you eventually sell it. Okay, that's not closing costs when you buy it. That's what we call acquisition costs. So closing costs at some point after I've bought it, rehabbed it, rented it for 10 years, whatever it may be, I'm going to have closing costs when I eventually sell. So I want to input the cost of selling the property before I even make the offer. This is where a lot of investors mess up right here. And I don't know, you probably hear stories that, you know, the investor bought a property and next thing you know, they didn't make as much money as they thought they would. And it's usually where they don't calculate the cost of getting rid of the property. Hedge expense is nothing more than a buffer. It's kind of that extra added cost, just in case you missed the leaky water pipe behind the wall. And this is usually 10% of what we call the repair cost. So if our repair cost is $70,000, okay, we want to take 10% of that. In this case, would be $77,000. Now, here's the great part. If your inspection repair cost is accurate, then you're not going to use that 7. That 7 is going to go straight into HIP National Bank. So that's going to be more into your profits. Advertising expenses, when we go to advertise this, we don't use realtors to sell properties. We already have a marketing team on hand. They do that, but we also realize that the buyer may bring in a realtor, and I've got that down to 3% for the commission when we sell, not when we buy, because sellers pay real estate commissions, not buyers. In this particular case, if I were to be wholesaling this property, this case I'm not, but if I were going to wholesale this property, you would slide this slider bar right here, and that would be your potential wholesaling fee. And then your retailer's fee, you got to figure out no matter if you're wholesaling or not. General rule of thumb, we put 15%. I like to make more than 15%. So I've just moved this particular one up to 19. Now, if I go back up to the top and I hit calculate the offer, my maximum offer is 105. Now, this is a simple calculation, guys. It's simply the ARV minus all of my expenses and all of my potential profits to give me the 105.9. Now, we don't want to start there, though. We always want to start less. And that way it gives you room for negotiation. So we offered 94. We settled on 96. And I'm going to go through these other offers as well. So we go to the lease option offer. Sales price, we're going to pay you full price, $120. We're going to go 0 down and then monthly payment of $1,200. I don't like this monthly credit part. That's why we put optional. I know some investors still like to do this. I just don't like it. I don't like giving it almost looks like equity to a judge. I know years ago we did this all the time. I'm just advising you guys not to use this particular part of the offer. The term we'd like to go as long as we can with the seller, and then a repair threshold of 500. If I calculate that, you can see the numbers over here. Then we move into the seller finance offer. So we're going to put in the sales price, the down payment, interest rate of 5%. We're going to amortize this over 30 years, but the loan term, we need to cash the seller out within 5 years. Okay, so remember, we're going to make monthly payments until we either refinance the property or we cash them out, sell the property, and then that's going to cash out the original $110,000 minus the $2,500. I did throw in property taxes, insurance, just to give me a total monthly payment. Again, keep in mind, whoever has the deed, which would be the buyer, the end buyer, would be responsible for taxes and insurance. As I scroll down, you can see the numbers here. Monthly PI is $577. You can see escrow payment. Monthly total payment would be $872. Balance in 5 years would still be $98,000. So you don't make much equity in the first 5 years, unfortunately, with properties. That's just the way mortgages work. And monthly payments for 5 years would be $52. And again, that would be our monthly principal interest payment multiplied over 5 years. And total interest paid $25,000. So they would totally receive $153. Now that's a lot more than the $110. So this is a really awesome strategy, especially for, let me give you an example of an investor that has rented their house out for years and they're just tired of being a landlord, but they love the passive income. This is a great strategy for someone in that scenario because they're going to make a lot more money. They're not going to have maintenance costs and repairs, and they're making interest on it. So that's where they're going to make a lot more money doing a seller finance than they ever would by renting the property out. Again, this is one of the most profitable strategies, but keep in mind, it's over time. It's not something I'm going to get paid today in. So you can see we're going to amortize all the payments out. So if we were to, as an example, let's say that we put a new buyer in and they cash this out in 2 years. Well, you simply just amortize, go down, and we have to figure out how much would we owe the seller in 2 years. I would go to that 24 month. We would owe them $104,000. Of course, if the buyer doesn't cash this out, we extend or do a different agreement. We're going to start this all over again. Now, with the buyer's point of view, we would need to calculate what the buyer is paying, and then go through this formula, amortize, and see what their ending balance would be. And to find the differences is where you're going to see your profits on a seller finance. Now that we have these offers, so we have 3 offers that we're going to make to the seller, and yes, we're going to make them all at the exact same time. And obviously, I'd prefer to do this in person. I know a lot of times you can't. Sometimes you got to do it over the phone first, and then I would recommend emailing it to them, or even visit them at the property after you've talked to them, because they're going to have questions. They're going to try to understand what all this is. Trust me, if they knew what it was, they'd already be doing it. They wouldn't even need you. So we need to properly educate our sellers as we go through this process, even starting with step 1. Step 2, we call them. We need to communicate and educate people. I see a lot of people, they try to like push it and oversell it. I can tell you that's where I messed up years ago. I was just trying to sell a lease option. I'd call a seller and I'd say, hi, my name is Chris, and a lease option is a lease agreement combined with a purchase agreement, which gives us the right or option to purchase the property. You're going to receive a non-refundable down payment, blah, blah, blah. And next thing you know, the seller is so confused. They don't even know what you're talking about. Now it sounds like a scam. Okay, so we have to properly educate people. And what I always tell my coaching students is you always go into a property that you're going to buy it. And when you have multiple strategies in your toolbox, you don't know how you're going to buy it yet, but you want to understand what they would be open to. And like I said before, sometimes they're not open to a seller finance or a lease option, but when you present the offer, they end up taking it. One of my star students, Rex Kress, did over $660,000 his first year working with me. And his very first property was A mother had passed away, left the property to three sons. And we talked to the three sons. They just wanted to be cashed out. That's all they wanted to do. And we went ahead and made multiple offers. And the seller came back, talked to his brothers. They ended up taking the lease option offer. Okay. Because the sales price looked better. Maybe that was their pet peeve. Okay. If you want the cash and run and be done with the property, then take our cash offer. If you want to look at it and make more money over the course of, a long period of time and not have to worry about the property and just receive passive income, maybe you go with the seller finance offer. Or if you want to get paid top price, do it for a shorter period of time, but you're going to make a little bit less money, you go with the lease option. And what we're doing is we're hitting people on different angles. And I always try to look at these different angles as I create these offers, because I don't want someone to argue with me. I'm going to put these offers at the best possible offer, because I see a lot of investors, you almost go too low that they don't even want to pay attention or listen to any of the other offers. Okay. But some of the benefits of giving multiple offers is that because you gave multiple offers, the seller gets so confused on which offer to take, they fail to realize they didn't have to take any of them. Right. Next thing is you give them options. Anytime you give a seller options, you're already smarter. You're already doing something different than most investors. And that's where they build trust with you. They build trust with you. They're more likely to take one of these offers or negotiate one of these offers with you. And that's really the key to this business. I see so many people, they go in, they just, hey, lowball the offer. It's kind of it's like that one shoe fits all approach. You just make one lowball offer. They say no, you move on to the next deal. Next thing you know, you've made 50 offers. You haven't even done one deal. I don't think you need to do that. I think you need to educate yourself and put yourself in a position where you have multiple tools in the toolbox. And when you have that capability, not only you look at it from an acquiring side, now your exit strategies you have multiple exit strategies. So it really gives you a lot of power to be in that position. Now, keep in mind, it does take time. You got to go through this process. You got to put your feet out there. You got to go after it. You got to educate yourself on multiple strategies. But what else are you going to do? And that's my point. I want you to get good at one or two, and I want you to move to three. I want you to move to four. And eventually over the period of time, you're going to be really good at this business. And that's what makes you wealthy. I look at real estate strategies, I'm kind of rambling on here, but I look at real estate strategies as profit centers. It's kind of like a job. If you have a job, then you only have one profit center. Well, if that profit center gets cut off, you don't have any more income, you would need to go get another job. So now let's look at real estate. If I only know one strategy, what happens when that profit center gets cut off that month? Well, you don't have any income. And that's where I can rely on these multiple profit centers. So my wholesaling business may be doing well this month while my lease option's a little slow. While my lease option business is building up, my wholesaling's not. In the process, I've got 2 rehabs that I'm working on over here. And what I'm doing is I'm doing and working multiple strategies. That's where you build wealth. It's not working one thing. I can tell you one strategy will pay your bills, but you're going to work really hard at one strategy and you're going to lose a lot of deals, because if you only know one way, then you can only present one offer, and that doesn't give the seller any options. So again, there's so many positive reasons why you need to be creating multiple offers, but we've got to learn how to do it. And that's what this presentation is all about, is to help you understand how to make those multiple offers. Okay, so now that we're in REI Pro, all you got to do is hit print offer. Now, if you like the version or the language that we use, you could just print it up in a PDF. You can either include or exclude your business logo. I generally, if it's wholesale, if it's like an all cash deal, if you're wholesaling or retailing, don't use your company logo, because then you come across as some big company, because they don't know how big or small you are. But then you come across as some big company, and they're always going to feel that you could pay more for the property. Okay, so don't do that. But the terms offers, I like to include the company logo, because I need to come more across as you trust me. Because now I've got to make monthly payments on this property. So there is a difference, and hopefully you can take that some advice there, and that's definitely going to help you. If you want to reword or even upload your own custom, then you could do that here as well. You could either pull ours up in a Word doc, change the language, and then upload it, or upload your own, is what I meant. So you do have options. Now, we have these printed out, and what are we going to do? So the first thing I would do is call the seller and see if we can meet at the property. If that's not possible, then we're going to have to try to explain these offers over the phone. And just keep in mind, you're not going to be able to go through the whole thing, because then it's going to come across as though you're selling the offers. I always come across as, you know what, if I buy, great. If I don't, great. That's kind of my attitude going into it, because I see a lot of people, they almost force the offer onto the seller, like, you got to take it, you got to take it. And that's where the seller's not going to trust you. And, why would you keep pushing that on me? So I like to educate them. I like to stay in control of the conversation by usually asking them questions, explaining it, but keeping it simple. I know that sounds simple, but it is simple. I think we try to overanalyze on what we should be saying instead of keeping it simple. So try to keep these conversations simple. So if you do have to do it over the phone, email them afterwards. Let them know that you're going to email them the offer sheet so they can see it on paper. It takes time for people to process what you're offering, because it's not normal to offer several different offers, number one. So they have to process this information. And of course, if you have any questions, please let me know. We just wanted to provide different ways on how we can buy your house. And it's one of the really awesome things that we can do. So just let us know which offer you would like to take. So I'm always, always that positive. You got to stay positive through the conversation. And then again, answer questions. You can adjust numbers as needed. If you need to adjust them, just make sure there's profit still there for everybody, depending on what strategy that you're doing. And then get this property sold. So if I go back and just so you guys can actually see this particular property, I want to share with you this property online that we do have. Let me get to Zillow just so you can see some pictures of it. I'm going to go to 127 Sweet Gum. Here, we're going to pull this property. So I don't know if you remember what that picture looked like prior to, but we went ahead and rehabbed it, added a front porch, beautiful. We were advertising 250. We settled on 246. We're going through the process now of getting that property closed. So that's what it looks like. And that was the offer they took. And our exit strategy was to retail it. Now, what happens if the property doesn't sell? So what could we do with it? Well, guess what? Could we rent it? Yes. Could we lease option it? Yes. Could we sell or finance it? Yes. Now we have multiple exit strategies going into it. And the reason why we do is because we know how. And that's why, again, it's so important to have these multiple strategies in your toolbox so you can create multiple offers. This is the whole point that we even put it in REI Pro to begin with, is to give you more flexibility, give you more options, give you more strategies so you could go out there and get more deals done. Because I see a lot of people, they pass up deals, and it's because they just didn't know how. And it's all education. It's not that we're better than the next person. It's understanding what to do, how to do it, and execute it. And that's really about it. So we do have other training videos. If you guys go to the Education Center, I'll just show you exactly where that's at. If you click this education here, you can go through some of the other education videos to kind of tie in some of these others, such as running comps. How do I run comps to get that ARV? And other things. How do we do the phone call initially? And so forth. So hopefully you guys took a lot. I know that was a lot of information, kind of hit you pretty hard here within about an hour. But as you can see, this is really powerful stuff. I mean, it's really the key to building wealth in this business is creating multiple offers. Now, keep this in mind, though, guys. Could you not create 3 different types of lease option offers? Absolutely. If I change the sales price by $5, I can change the down payment by $5. Now it's a different offer. So you can literally create multiple offers within the exact same strategy, except the cash offer. So when we get to the term side of it, maybe you offer, multiple lease option types of offers. Maybe you have 2 lease options and 1 seller finance. Maybe you have 3 different seller finance offers. You can literally create millions of types of offers with these strategies to get the deal done. And that's where your job is to really qualify the seller, understand the situation, provide the best offers that you possibly can to start with. And that's how you're going to get deals done. So anyways, thank you guys so much for being on this training. Because we have so many people, there's no way we're going to be able to take all these questions, unfortunately. But if you want to email us, any REI Pro subscriber can email us. I will be happy to answer those questions for you. And anyways, go back through this. We'll have this inside of REI Pro Education Center as quickly as we possibly can. You can go back and review this. Listen to it several times. I guarantee you, you're going to pick up new things each time you watch it. So anyways, everybody have a wonderful rest of their week and look forward to seeing you guys on our next training.